Shoot, whenever you're ready. I'm ready for you.
Okay, so we're only going to do parts 1 and 2, because part 3 was supposed to be for the other person, so we only have to do half of it. Okay, so what was your previous life like prior to incarceration?
Well, okay, give me 1 second. All right, prior to incarceration, all right, now we need to note that there were several instances of incarceration as a youth, as a young adult, and as an adult. So if you're speaking about as a youth, just to keep it general, give you a little bit of perspective, going to the system at 13, just 2 weeks before turning 14, life was good. A well-provided working class family, living with my grandparents in upstate New York, midst, in the Utica region. And, didn't have a want for anything. So materially well provided for. So to speak to that question, however, the only thing I did need was better mentors that were closer to me. My grandfather was a good mentor, but again, he's my grandfather. As a young man coming up, you need role models that sometimes are more immediate to your age, in terms of availability. Moving forward into being a young adult, my background was I came home from juvenile lockup and wanting to do good with my life. However, I didn't change people, places, and things, as they say, and still had that attachment to the streets, to misbehavior. So I had taken the ASVAB, the military ASVAB test, and was actually intending to go into the military, go into the Air Force, and didn't have at a party, it got embroiled into altercation and into prison at the adult at the age of 16. Nowadays, I went to prison. I would have went to juvenile lockup again, but I was tried and treated as an adult at 16. And then I came home at 20, and really hit the ground running. Came out to Westchester and really went to school with the Skidmore College Computer Career Institute in White Plains. I got my PC services for specialist certification. Started pursuing my A+ certification as a computer tech, and in short order, enrolled in college at SUNY WCC as a computer information systems major. And was taken off from there. And then about a little bit over 18 months later, someone pulled a gun out on me, and I would defend myself. Unfortunately, another person injured. Being that I had this criminal background of conviction, and I had gotten prosecuted for assault and attempt murder, actually. But I got acquitted of attempt murder as well as intentional assault. However, the judge didn't properly instruct the jury, which led to a wrongful conviction. Didn't instruct the jury on self-defense, so the jury never had that option available to them. And so not only although they found not guilty of murder, intentional assault, criminal use of a firearm, etc., they weren't allowed to go that one extra step in acquitting me altogether of, say, reckless conduct, because going for another person's gun, even if it could be considered reckless. Nevertheless, they were wrongly allowed to construe justifiable conduct to be criminally liable. In any event, I went to prison for 6.5 years of a 20-year conviction because of that. Come home and successfully transitioned, if you will. So prior to incarceration as a youth, life was good. As a young adult, again, life was good. And last, as an adult coming home after a 4-year conviction from 20, life was good as well. So that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so did you have any work experience prior to? And if you did, can you explain what it was?
Prior to, again, you have 3 different transition points. So help me out here. I would say as a youth, no. I just got my working papers a little, maybe the year before, maybe, or even that year, when I turned 13. Evidently the year before I got incarcerated as a youth. So going from 12 to 13, I got my working papers, and actually looking, toward working as a getting a summer job or something. But that never happened. I went to juvenile lockup instead. Home at 16. It was a very short-lived reentry from maybe December 1995 until March 1996. So no really time to work. Again, I came home to my grandparents at like it was called DFI back then. I did this youth. That was called OC. But so I didn't have any time to transition, and my living circumstances with my grandparents was a well-provided household. Again, a working class to middle class household. Not affluent, but still definitely stable, definitely a good home, caring, nurturing home. But as a young adult coming out of prison at the age of 20, yes, work experience. I started out with, actually my first job was with Labor Ready, a temp agency. We worked that day, get paid that day type of thing. And then along with that, so that was basically within the first month of me coming home. And by the end of that month, I had gotten a job with Staples doing retail sales, applying my background in computer as a prison vocation. And I came out and used that in the business machine and electronics department to sell computers and computer-related products, printers, etc. And I continue to move forward from there. Temp jobs, office jobs, using, again, my computer skills here, software. I was going to school as a PC service and support specialist. And so as I started to learn more, I started applying more. And so temp jobs as an office assistant or administrative assistant, basically doing office databases, spreadsheets, definitely word processing. Aside from that, then as I got my A+ certification, started to do temp jobs doing tech support. So I started to transition from there. So I think that kind of answers that before incarceration. Now after incarceration is a different story.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, how was your educational experience prior to incarceration?
Prior to incarceration, again, prior to incarceration, I have 3 different incarceration points, but as a youth, I did very well academically. My grandparents and other family members pushed me, or encouraged me, I say, more than push. They encouraged me to really engage the school system, academics. And I loved it. And so much so that, that my grandmother actually told me about this, that they wanted to skip me up twice in elementary. My grandfather didn't allow it because he himself had limited education background. Did not pass. I would say he had maybe a 6th to 7th grade education coming from the South to New York, and so in that era, which became of working age, he went to work, and so. And then he ended up migrating to New York, and because he had a limited educational background, he wanted me to have a better educational background. So he didn't allow the school to skip me up twice. Yes, going from 6th grade to 7th grade, I went as a full reading student into all my classes. I stayed at junior high school. And then because of behavioral problems, I was placed in an alternative school. So educationally, I did good. Behaviorally, I did bad, even in juvenile lockup. Like, for example, global study had like a 99. All my RCTs I had in the 90s, mid to upper 90s. So I was a smart kid, but a bad kid. My aptitude tests were high, even at ages of 14 and 15 in juvenile life. You would get the aptitude test to determine what grade they were going to put you in, because it's like a real generic type of so it wasn't like everybody was in 7th grade or 8th grade or 9th grade or 10th grade, but rather it could have been mixed, and depending on what the aptitude level determined the type of work you would get. So for me, at 14 and 15, I had college level aptitude scores, and so they would be appropriate high school work. Coming out of juvenile lockup and into the community at 16, I was placed in 11th grade, and again, that was a short-lived experience before I went into the adult criminal justice system. And had taken my GED in short order. Within a few months, got a GED, and from there was a gap between when I had gotten transferred upstate in 1996 to coming home in 2000, and so throughout that whole period, I didn't have any academics, because I had my GED already, and the New York State Department of Corrections didn't host a college program itself. Maybe in some facilities that might have been the case, but not in the facilities I was. So my education consisted of vocational programs and extracurricular programs that made have been at whatever facility I was at. Eventually, I did come home and at 20, and enrolled in college, and I did good with the placement test. They offered me the ability to go to advanced placement, but I didn't take it because I was coming home, and not only the transition process, but I feel like I had to work full time. Just didn't allow me to even reluctant to take advanced placement classes. I had to kind of balance and engage what the workload would be. That said, then maybe so I was, again, like I said, started with vocational school to get a career certification or industry certification. So it's a career rather than just take odd jobs until I eventually get a degree. So I was able to really enter the IT workforce with the A+ certification, along with the PC Services and Support Specialist certification, and then while also going for a degree as well in the related field of computer information systems. Then I had gotten incarcerated, again, for the wrongful conviction, for which I served 17 and a half years, but a little bit over 17 and a half years. And then while incarcerated, I had the opportunity to engage in some college programs. While I was at Sing Sing, I was able to enroll in the Mercy College program. And then I had gotten transferred out of Sing Sing to which there was a college program. And then I found some out of different facilities. I got transferred to different facilities such as Great Meadows and no college, or Coxsackie. Again, there was no program at that facility. So eventually I got transferred to Auburn Correctional Facility, in which I was able to engage in the Cornell Prison Education Program. Cornell University has a partnership with Adelphi Community College, where it offers a college program, associate's level degree program. So I was able to engage in Mercy College's bachelor's program until I transferred out to Sing Sing. And I didn't finish the bachelor's, however. And the Cornell Prison Education Program, which had an associate's in liberal arts, educational background to some extent.
That was great, thank you. What were your goals and ambitions growing up?
My goals and hold on for a second. And so my goals and ambitions while I was growing up were mixed. I didn't have beginning with a desire to some kids, I want to be a police officer or a fireman or a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. No, I didn't have the goals clarified, if you will. I didn't have bad goals either. I was just experiencing life as a kid. My goal was to continue to do good in school, and that was that, because that's what my grandparents kind of expected of me, and gave me the space to kind of figure out what I would become. My grandfather himself, he worked in an abattoir or a slaughterhouse. It's much more than a meat packing house, where they would kill the animals, prepare them for the meat packing process, etc. And he did that retirement. So that's not necessarily something he asked me to, or he opened for me to become. So I didn't look at that as an option. But again, I wasn't confronted, with an expectation to be anything. However, I did have some friends of the family who were in the military. So as I started to look at what career options might be out there, I did look at the military. Friends of the family that I did have, they were in the Navy, and that was an option. I started to take life into the Air Force as aviation engineering, and that was an idea that I wanted to do, and that's the reason why I took the ASVAB test. However, that didn't pan out because I had gotten incarcerated as a young adult. And, when I came home at 20, I started to pursue the IT career field. And, so that was the closest of a goal, and it kind of cornered the market. Because as a tech, I was learning the hardware and the servicing side of things, computer information systems. I was also learning the software side of things, the programming side more so. And then I was looking at not just that, but a pathway to go from tech to engineer to, possibly entrepreneurial ambitions. And ultimately, I'm here speaking to you now.
Thank you. What skills, if any, did you gain while incarcerated that you were most proud of?
I would say the skill out of everything. I can get technical, and I learned this. I learned how, to, for example, building maintenance. I can drywall. I can do drywall. I can do carpentry. I can do plumbing. I can do electric, masonry. Those are technical skills or hard skills, along with the computer stuff I was mentioning to you before. However, I think the thing I can be proud of most is a personal skill. Engage in life, in a growth-filled, optimistic way, so that I have the ability to be resilient and resourceful. Some people may cave in or become overwhelmed by challenges of life, hitting walls and other barriers. I don't succumb to them, and I, overcome them by either putting through them or pivoting around them. And so I think that is the skill that life skill that I, take the most appreciation.
That was great. Thank you. How did your mindset change as a result of your mindfulness meditation practice and learning experience?
Becoming more present in the situation. I think that's the takeaway from mindfulness, period. Because now, our inability to be more mindful, to be more present, you're able to come into situations with your eyes wide open, if you will. See opportunities or silver linings in situations other people may not. And also come away with it, not just seeing an opportunity, but doing so in a reflective, appreciative sense, to have an attitude of gratitude, if you will, so that I, am grateful for and appreciative of all that I've been through, even a wrongful conviction of 17 plus years in prison for a crime that I didn't do. I even had a federal magistrate saying that I was denied due process in a fair trial, and that had I been given a fair due process in a fair trial, then it's likely I would never have been convicted at all. But even taking that, by being mindful and meditation practices, and the I would say the personality and the character contribution that it offered, allowed me to even take that 17-year imprisonment and use it as an incubator to come out great.
It's a really awesome way of thinking about it. Thank you for sharing. Could you describe the service programs you were involved in while incarcerated?
Yeah, there were many. I mentioned actually two of them already. Hudson Links prison education program, Hudson Link is a nonprofit that's in New York, and they service several prisons for men and women in the lower Hudson region, lower to mid Hudson region, actually. Aside from that, the Cornell Prison Education Program was another one. Besides those two, I definitely engaged in, and I think I alluded to it earlier, vocational programs, whether it be building maintenance, computer repair, general business. In addition to that, extracurricular programs. In some of the other facilities, they have inmate organizations, administratively approved inmate organizations. When I say organizations, not a criminal organization, but rather guys or gals, in prison that engage, that want to gather for progressive or growth-oriented purposes. Say a cultural organization like Hispanics United for Progress, or the Caribbean African Unity Organization. Both of these I was a member of. Total Lifers Organization. These are some of the organizations that exist in some facilities, and they host several different programs. For example, the Caribbean African Unity Organization that was in Fishkill, they hosted, and I actually taught through that, entrepreneurship, home buying, the mortgage process, as well as financial literacy classes, life skill classes, and then there's other organizations such as Alternatives to Violence Project, AVP, that we call it, and that hosts workshops in various facilities covering a whole slew of different matters, from conflict resolution programs, activities, to nonviolent communication, to parenting, to manly awareness, to a whole slew of different trauma resilience, so a whole different slew of different things again. And then there was other programs that were there. So.
All right, thank you. Can you describe your experiences with fellow incarcerated individuals in terms of challenges and meaningfulness?
Yeah, because I will give you an example. Not just saying, okay, we're being in the yard, for example, in a recreation yard, where you're just working out, exercising, playing sports, whatever. But in more program-oriented things, I was a facilitator for several different programs. One of them was the Transitional Services Department, which is a section within the prison, an office in the prison that was responsible for helping guys prepare for release. Transition, as the term transitional services, either transitioning into prison, during prison, or at the end of your bid out in society, reentry. That's what we call it. And so I was a facilitator, more so for the transition period during incarceration, while you're in the middle of your bid. What are you doing to utilize, as well as the end section, what we call phase 3, when individuals are going home, preparing them for reentry. That said, one of the challenges was to help guys confront how prison helped to, I would say, calcify them in whatever stage they were at, with regard to how they came into the system. I'm a big advocate or of the saying that rehabilitation or personal transformation, more so, personal change happens despite prison, not due to prison. In the sense that administrations don't take a lot of administrations. Some administrations might be the exception, and I can point to some. But for the vast majority of the prisons, especially those that are in the more rural areas, upstate, Clinton, Great Meadow, Attica, they didn't take an active approach. And these are where some of the bigger populations of people are. They didn't take an active responsibility nor approach to personal transformation amongst the prison population. I can say rehabilitation, but nevertheless, I like to use the term personal transformation because it's a little bit more global rather than rehabilitation. It's a little bit more obscure. And so people, yes, I do say personal change is a person's responsibility. I communicate that. However, we don't exist in vacuums, but rather we exist in social contexts. So if you don't provide people opportunities and mechanisms for growth, then those things can be impediments toward personal growth and hence personal transformation and personal change. Therefore, when you're confronted with a guy, for example, who has spent 5 to 10 years in prison, if not more, he's on the verge of going home. How can you reverse a lot of the personality traits that they absorbed and have taken on? How can you, kind of help them break out of that and become their best selves, even in that short amount of time, say 120 something days before going home? That is definitely a challenge. And allowing people to see the potential that they had to become the best parts of themselves, is challenging, invigorating, about it, but it's challenging because you have to make the person see it in themselves that they may not see because all the stuff that goes on, the brutality, the injustices that happen in prison. And just imagine, Philip Zimbardo did a behavioral scientist, did an experiment called the Stanford Prison Experiment. And to show how having an insular environment, a prison often is, insulated from the outside, so it's its own little world, how abusive it can become if checks and balances aren't there. And so having to help people see the best in themselves despite those type of circumstances is definitely challenging. And to engage prison administrations to call them on some of these things was challenging as well and curious. One of the mechanisms that exists within prison is called the Inmate Liaison Committee. And it stems from that program, if you will, or that aspect of prison, or the Prison Inmate Liaison Committee, or ILCs, a mechanism, that's a better word for it, came as a result of the Attica uprising, Attica riots, because prisons were insular, prisons were abusive, prisons were debilitating and denying many things that people would kind of take, as common sense. For example, to help prepare people to come home into society after serving X amount of time. So some of these things were demanded by the Attica uprising. That people see nowadays and say, well, that's what you're supposed to have in a correctional facility, but they weren't, at that time. So the ILC was formed by legislative enactment to be a mechanism to help prison administrations address prison conditions. And we serve as the inmates that are, or prisoners that are elected to these positions of inmate liaison committee amongst other people in the population, serves as that intermediary to, between the population and the administration to help address things ongoing in the prison, or to kind of address things that should be implemented. But that is a challenging role because sometimes, again, prison administrators look at that as adverse or antagonistic to their role as administrators, which in fact should be complementary. It should help them to address things in the trenches that they don't see because they don't interact with the prison population in the trenches on an everyday basis, or they do so from a distance, to get a pulse on, the level of the population. Are they growing? Are they, or whatever happened? What is their concentration with regard to something? So challenges from both ways, helping people to become their better selves, or with prison officials, whether it's administration or officers, to prevent prison from being the worst that it can be. Yeah.
That was great. Thank you. Okay, one more question for me, and then I'm going to turn you over to my partner. Did your incarceration experience include educational opportunities? And if not, would you have wanted it to?
Yeah, I mentioned from academic to vocational. From academic to vocational, in the sense, I mentioned the college level programs. But again, those were private ventures from nonprofits, such as, like I said, Hudson Link or Cornell Prison Education Program. In some facilities, those things didn't exist at all. Like I said, Clinton, Attica, Great Meadow. So that's not universal in the New York City prison population or prison period throughout the United States. It happens, great. And sometimes the administration would come in and take a deprivational role in the process. So, and I say, and how that works is this, that they use it as a mechanism to control inmate behavior. It shouldn't. Because it's not part of the articulated realm of penalties that's stated in correctional law or the prison policies. And I think we're about to be cut off.
Yes. Okay, so I forgot that this was an issue.
If you want to resume it on the next go round, we could.
I don't know how to, like.
But in short, I would say yes. From academic to vocational, I did engage in academic stuff, vocational programs, extracurricular programs, self-help. So I engaged in all those things. And my only critique is that they're not more universally available to people so that everybody can get it. I was fortunate to be in some places that did have it.
Great, thank you. Okay, so my partner does have a few questions to ask, but I'm not sure what to do about the time limit.